everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Over the past few years, we've been working to bring awareness to the labor shortage in our industry. Just after COVID, I got involved with Spring Lake Park High School, and in the 80s and 90s, they had a trades program when I was growing up there, and I believe, do you remember they built, what was the number that we came up with? It was like 10 to 12 houses within the community. Yep. And I believe that kind of went away in the early 2000s, and then you were hired in what year?
2021.
2021. So our guest here is Eric Van Brocklin. He's the, I don't know, are you the director of the
Career Pathways leader, they called me.
For Spring Lake Park High School, and,
yeah.
you 2021, so this is your third year?
My third year coming
And
up.
what did you do before that?
I was, well, for quite a few years, I was an administrator, principal. The last place I was the intermediate school district, 917, it's called, down in Rosemont. We were located on Dakota County Technical College. I oversaw our alternative learning programs, but also our career and tech ed programming. So we had the construction trades program, auto care, diesel truck,
so all sorts of trades programs.
Trades related things, yeah.
So when you came up here, what did you run into? Like when you came to Spring Lake Park, what were their expectations of you, and what did you have to work with?
Well, I'll be honest with you, when I interviewed with them, part of my interview process is they said, well, what would you like to see? And I just flat out said, if I come here, you guys should be doing some kind of trades related thing. And I have a person, or I have a connection from what we used to do in my other district. We built a house every year. Our construction trades teacher did. We obviously worked on cars, this and that. I mean, I knew the layout of the land that at the time, you would know from back in your time, that they had an auto shop there, but that stuff had been repurposed. But I said, I can get you a person that'll pay for a house build and we can get it going. You just got to come along, you got to be willing to do that. I'll do all the legwork, and it won't cost the district anything other than a teacher.
Yeah.
And to the credit of Dr. Ronneberg at the district and other folks there, and Matt Boucher and folks at high school, they said, okay, go ahead, give your first. I got here in the fall of that year, and we started in right away. I mean, I kind of had our partner up there right away, and November probably met with the district and kind of got it on the books and said, okay, because I'd been through the process a little bit, so I knew, and I had to convince them, but it wasn't it didn't take a lot. So I give them a lot of credit to that district. They took a shot at it and shot on me and let it happen. And
it was funny because I remember talking preliminary before last year. We didn't know what direction we were going. We just had an end result. And throughout the year, everything just kind of kept falling into place between local trade partners, the trade partners that you brought in, the community, like just the outreach from the community was amazing. Not only like citizens, but just local businesses and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So in the career pathways, I know one of the big things I want to focus on today is like the trades and stuff. But like, what else are we doing in the school? What other stuff did we work together, and what else did you facilitate within the school for all of the students as far as just career development opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, some of those things were in place. So the medical careers has been there for years. Bill Nice, Jen Nice, they've been doing that forever, and that's one of those ones I stay away from. I just say, let me support you what you need, but he's been there 35 years.
And I don't think he wants help.
No, they're awesome. I mean, he does this thing. And they had some of the other engineering pathway stuff like that was so what I kind of foster was not only the house building class, we also created an intro to trades class, which, as we talked to Scott Wickland, who's tremendous. I mean, like, talk about hit the home run. To have a guy in the district that was willing to come out of the social studies classroom after 19 years.
It was 19 years,
and social studies, and he does stuff in the summer and aside, and he's a farm guy coming from that background. Got introduced to him partway through that first year, and we had a lot of discussions about, are you sure you want to do this jump? And he did, and it's a home run. But we also said, no, at the house, but we got to do an intro to trades class, because there's going to be kids who aren't going to want to build a house, right?
Right.
So we kind of talked about what that would look like. So that was more of an introductory thing, which we still have happening. I brought along, we kind of induced a career fair mindset that, there's kind of been one a little bit, but I feel like it's kind of a model I've used in the past, kind of cranked up on steroids again, to say, you and your people have been tremendous, the partners, the different people I've known, but also just the community members, the Chamber of Commerce has been awesome, but we kind of infused that in there. We've increased the amount of internships or apprenticeship opportunities so kids can come out and go to work right away if they want during the year. The school district's very flexible about that. We've got more business partners in there, more opportunities for kids to get paid positions while they're still in high school that would lead to being paid while they're in college if they choose to want to do that.
Also, just on-site paid training opportunities
Yes.
as far as getting jobs, and it might not be college or technical school, but these companies are they're paying the kids to be employed and like educating them in that particular field. And I want to say the last time I talked to Scott, wasn't it like 6 kids from the construction class went on and had paying jobs before they even graduated?
Oh, probably at least 6. In fact, I'll give you an example today real quick. We had our workshop week this week, and Matt Boucher, the high school principal, made a mention to this young man, Hunter, who graduated early.
Hunter worked for me for a summer,
So, I mean, he worked for you in that summer, which I got introduced to him that way. He showed me some of your projects you were doing. But Hunter kind of stayed connected with him. He found out after first trimester last year of his senior year, he was in good shape credit-wise. Well, he came to me and kind of asked about what could happen. And so I kind of worked with our counselors who are awesome and just said, yeah, I mean, if you got everything you need, your senior social, senior English done, and some other stuff, he's going to Anoka Tech for the electrician program. He already knew that. He had started in the Scott's class. He'd worked for you previously, but he said, hey, I really want to be an electrician. Well, by December, after the first trimester, he had gotten hooked up with an electrician, got his Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry apprenticeship, pre-apprentice card they call it, or unlicensed electrician. And so he started working right there. And
was that full time towards the end?
Yeah, he was
credit wise.
He was done December 7th or 8th. They signed off on an early grad for him, and then we had a couple other young men go through that worked at Blaine Brothers up here. You got a batch of guys working with you. This past summer and throughout part of the year. We got some other kids I just met the other day kind of coming through saying they're interested. They might be bothering you a little bit and some other folks, but yeah, I mean, so that's really the whole purpose of why we're trying to do what we're doing. Obviously, it's the trade industry. My dad built bridges for 55 years, so I come from that mindset a little bit of that. I didn't do that, but he did. So we're just trying to find that passion for them, get them out and get them going, get them started early, find out what they like or don't like before they go off to school and spend a lot of money and decide they don't like it. We're hoping what Scott does, your opportunities, the partners around the community here.
So I want to get back to the trade stuff, but like I know some of the things that we helped this year we did the Shark Tank events and stuff, and what I like from the outside in when you asked us to partner up with and that stuff, the way I'm taking it is that those types of classes, like the business entrepreneurship and that kind of stuff, they're in the class, they're in the school, but am I wrong to say that you kind of helped create more opportunities to use that where the kids gets practical real life in front of a panel so that they can actually get kind of a real world experience and just business modeling, speaking to people, doing mock interviews and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I can't take 100% that Melissa Olson, Dr. Olson's that's got that started prior to my time. Obviously, the COVID year kind of messed up a little bit, but I think I've tried to just take that and continue to run with it. So we try to expand it every year. This year I think we had 24 different partners come in, or community members from kind of all over the metro, to be honest with you, but majority of them in this area, which is good. But yeah, so good. That's, we have the Shark Tank event, we do the business projects, which we've done, and I kind of help push. When I first got the first year they're kind of wanting more of a marketing aspect of the business projects from these kids that went through the business entrepreneur class. Well, last year we expanded out through Walters Recycling, through Design Ready Controls, through some other things, and a little bit more of the trade side of things along with that for kids to have an interest in that, develop our homes that we worked with. So we're trying to expand that out besides just saying marketing for not to be me, for a food industry or retail. I've tried to expand that a little bit because saying, and you've taught me this, other people have taught me this in the trades industry, that like there are other components of the trades industry than the person who's actually putting the product up, right? The frame or the nail. There's the design. There's the people who run the permits. There's people who do the design, who do the interior layout, who do all those things. So what I'm hoping that when we try to project the kids, it's like, don't be scared away by the term trades or construct. There's so many things. There's accountants in there. There's salespeople. And so I think part of that, by having you guys there to that Shark Tank and having a wide range of companies and people that are in there doing different things so kids can see that's been huge. So
what's been really interesting to me is because I think throughout the years, like, I got into trades just because It was cool. I could make some money. I could be outside with my shirt off and seeing what I'm doing as a kid. But as I went to college and as I went through everything, you see that, okay, there's laborers, there's carpenters or electricians or whatever, but once you get outside of that, it's kind of what hat do you wear in the business. And that's where I love those events with the Shark Tank and stuff, is it's really showing, if you take a Shark Tank event or any of those other events and then you come back to the trades class, like one of the things that I want to portray is in order to get to that management position, that design, doing things that where you're not working with your hands, it's so valuable to actually get your hands dirty and do the physical work, because it's going to make you that much better at a designer, as a manager, or as an owner, or any of that. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me, is all of the intermingling of all of these programs that you guys threw out to these kids was amazing to me, because I'll be honest with you, up until my kids got into high school, I wasn't a big fan of what was happening in education, because I didn't know any of those opportunities were there. And after working with you for a year, I mean, there's a million opportunities for these kids to do anything they want. And that's not saying 4-year school is not an option, because some kids, that's the path that they want to go to. But giving a kid an opportunity to see what the real world is before they choose that is such a valuable tool for those kids. And like you just said, it's going to save them a lot of money.
Well, yeah, I mean, and what I've learned over time, I've just been fortunate doing what I've done. I think I got into this probably 8-9 years ago when I was a principal in my program. We started talking to different companies about their things. Because like I said, I come from a little different mindset. I grew up in Iowa on a farm, hobby farm. My dad worked construction. My mom and dad neither went to college. Dad in the military for 2 years, worked on heavy equipment. My mom was farm girl, farm lady. We milked cows, we did things. We all kind of just had to tinker and do everything. And so I just kind of come from that mindset. That's okay though. I got a 4-year degree because the career path I chose, I have to. Right. And I tell kids that all the time. Like, there's certain career paths you're going to have a 4-year degree if you decide to go on that path. On the flip side, I look at 2 of my brothers who are engineers and one of my sisters who's an RN. They all started at a 2-year school, didn't know what they wanted to do 100%. My sister probably more so in the RN world or in the medical world. But
I think that's a lot of nurses, don't you think? They get into that field, and there's so many different avenues.
But they didn't, But I also go back to say, to your point, which is spot on, and I'll never forget this whenever I do these things. You probably heard me tell it to kids, like, my brothers always talk about in the world of engineering, right? They've done almost it. Like, they've built houses, they've done plumbing, they've put stereos in cars, they've done all that stuff. So when they go down to the shop floor, when somebody's working on a project for them and they say, well, this isn't going to work, as an engineer mindset, they'll say, yeah, it's not going to work, because of X, Y, Z, because I've had my hands on it. I'll never forget that. I'll never lose that piece. I hope I don't ever. So that's why what we're doing there with Scott's class, with all that, it's an introductory piece. Find out what you like. You're right. So many kids think I'm going to go to this leadership level right away. But I always come back to say, like, but you got to know what you're leading, right? And if you don't know who you're leading and why you're leading them that way, you're probably not going to get the same results. So we really purposely try to make all these kids do different things. And not only in this construction trades class, but we have pre-engineering classes, the business classes. We start off with personal money management, foundations of business, just to learn about what those businesses are. And we bring people in for that. So I bring in a wide range of people to talk to those classes about the different jobs and roles they do in there. But yeah, it's just, my mindset goes, my job at Spring Lake Park is to make sure that, as I said, every kid walks out of there not knowing 100% what they want to do, but they've had at least an exposure or an opportunity to either have seen it, heard it, done it, so they can a little bit more informed conversation. And if they decide 4 years is the route and the parent decides that, that's great. If it's 2 years, that's great. And as you just talked about a few of these other young men, if going to work for a year, 2 years, 5 years, I always say they don't close the colleges when you're 19.
Right.
You can go when you're 25, when you're 30, when you're ready.
And how many people of our generation went to school, went on, got a degree, they get into a completely different field, and once they get into that field and kind of have a pathway for a career, they end up going back to school because they know 100% what they need school for that new career. My sister's a perfect example. She's I think it's a double major in biochem or chemistry, and she works for years. She climbed the corporate ladder as corporate transfer. So once she got into that career and she kind of climbed that ladder, she went back to school and did online school, got her master's. And I've had conversations with her where she's like, that online school for my master's degree in business was so much more beneficial than anything that I did in college. I learned how to study and I learned how to do all those, to pick up all those habits. But when you're like essentially focused on what you want to do at school, that's so huge.
Yeah.
My wife is they're an education family. I think, God, there's probably 4, 5, 6 teachers in the family. And I've always been one, I've been in the trades, I've always been, like, we don't need to go to, even though I did go to school, we don't need to do that. And then as I become a business owner and I get into the trades, I realize that every year as a general contractor, I'm forced to go to school.
Sure, yeah.
So what that does is open my eyes and what else do I need to learn, especially in today's world, because we're talking about technology upstairs. Well, technology is so big that if you're not educating yourself, you're behind the curve.
Yeah.
And what I love about your program is I think, how many kids were in the program last year? Between both classes?
Between both classes, we probably touched 150 kids, 160.
And I think I probably at one point, I probably saw 80% of them at one point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And beginning of the year, end of the year, especially with the ones that I had a lot of interaction with, I feel like every single one of them had some kind of vision of what they wanted to do.
Oh, sure.
Maybe even for some of the juniors that are going into the senior year, but they have a path now, and there's something up here that's like, oh my gosh, that's a possibility for me.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I mean. We had meetings this week with different parents about different things and trying to talk about stuff, and I'm like, do it now. It's free.
Yeah.
You can try it out now. Find out if you like it or not now. I mean, why not, right? We can't do everything. We don't offer everything, but what we've done, like I said, I give this district credit for, is that if we don't offer it there, which we can't do everything, but they'll allow me or the kid or the family to come to me and say, I want to do X, Y, Z. I'll say, okay, if I don't have that connection already, I'll talk to Lori Higgins with the NOCA Chamber, or the Chamber of Commerce up here, the Metro North, or John Conley with the Chamber of the Twin Cities North. I'll just shoot them messages and say, hey, we're looking for this. They spit me back 3 or 4 names right away.
Yeah.
And so it's been great. Like, the communities have been awesome. And what you know from your world, like, people are dying for people out there too, and they don't know how to access them even. So I just hope that we can keep rolling down the road of saying, our job is to say, you can get access. I'll tell you right now, real quick story. There's this Apple Tree Dental, which is right here. Well, they're starting a program, kind of an internship, job shadow thing. They reached out last spring to me. I don't know how I got their deal or how we got connected, but I always, when they reach out to me, I say, sure, let's figure it out, right? I don't ever say like, oh, we don't do that, or we can't. No, let's figure it out, right? We don't have a dental program. We have the medical careers. The 916 intermediate has dental. Well, we've got one young lady doing it this summer, or a young man that was starting doing a job shadow. Well, the young lady wants to keep doing it. And I just met with a young lady this morning, her family, a parent that wants to look at that. Well, they're looking at whether it be a semester, trimester, but Apple Tree is looking to get dental hygienists, dental assistants into the system to learn about it, see what it's like, to see if they like it. And then I don't know what they're going to do beyond that, because this is literally kind of their pilot as well.
Yeah.
Saying, do we then help support them to go to Century for the dental hygiene, whatever. But that's kind of starting to come around, and so that's like part of my job too, is just finding these things out. If I can find somebody who reaches out to me and says, hey, would you ever consider? And I always say yes. As long as it's legal and it's
I can't even remember the times during the year when I was at the school and you and Scott would be talking, and you'd be like, oh, I talked to so and so and so and so. Like it seemed like every time we talked, you had talked to someone else and had more opportunities that were just being blasted out to all the kids.
Yeah, they just try. And again, they gotta like it. The parents gotta be on board. And the other thing that's amazing is how much the parents are.
So that was gonna be my question. Like, how much feedback did you guys get? Obviously, we know that the community, because we had hands-on interaction throughout the year with just the neighbors and stuff, and we know Ronberg and the administration just had raving reviews. But once the year was done, where did you get like the feedback, and how much and what kind of feedback did you get from where?
So I mean, we get it kind of everywhere. So it's kind of a funny thing, Scott and I are joking. I mean, I work all year round in the schools, whatever, so I'm in there. And whether I'm in there doing something else, it's inevitable that this whole summer would always be, at some point, wouldn't be long before, hey, what's going on at the house?
Yeah.
Right?
You probably still get that.
I still get it. I just got it today. Like, oh, people, what's going on at the house? Well, the good news is it is going within the Mounds View area, and it's right close to school.
Oh, you can find a lot.
Yeah, only a couple miles away, right on Osborne and Pleasant View. So it's going to go down there. Which we're hoping that maybe the kids can help with that process
Or
of getting
see
it
it.
there and seeing it done. So it's going to be in the community, which is the advantage. The other piece of that is that we've had a lot of outreach from some local kind of nonprofit charitable groups that are looking for. It's amazing. Well, we all know that. You watch the news, everything. It's affordable housing for, displaced women, battered situation, families, immigrant, whatever families. And I've had probably 3 or 4 interactions with a variety of people that way as well, saying, hey, what's going on with that house? What I've been trying to work on is, okay, let's figure out how we can partner with them in the future maybe. So maybe this next year build that we do, we can get that set up on the front end to where, hey, we're going to do it, but it's going to go to an organization or a nonprofit that's going to help support that process. So that's kind of built, that was kind of like an unforeseen, thing of this versus the, build it, somebody buys it and then whatever, go on with life with it. So we've seen kind of that output from these organizations that are saying, hey, we see you're doing this. We heard that you guys have it. That was one of the cold calls. They called me cold and said, hey, we see you guys are building a house. What's the deal with it? Where's it going? Whose is it?
Yeah.
And I just kind of explained how we're partnered with somebody, but that the partner, that's part of the plan for that, is it's going to go to the community for affordable housing.
I actually did have I reached, when I asked you for Jeremy's number to talk about that, I reached out to him and we were texting back and forth, and he told me a lot about it. It's what he does with that house is just, it's fascinating. What a great thing for schools, and for him it's got to be a great thing too, because it broadens his network as well. Do you get how many parents, did you get a lot of replies from parents of kids in the program? Did you hear from them?
Oh yeah. So Scott had an open house in, I want to say mid-May, kind of the house was done. I think he had 50 or 60 people come to that.
Yeah.
The parents of the kids that built the house, but then he also kind of just opened it up. He had people from the public stop by. The parents, like I said, they've just been, I think, my opinion, I think there's a sense of relief from a lot of the parents that had kids in there. I know that might sound weird to somebody that doesn't know what I'm saying. What I'm saying by that is there's a sense of relief that the parent was probably going, I know my kid probably liked to do these things. I didn't know if I could be comfortable saying that on graduation night, throughout the year, that, hey, where's your kid going to school? Hey, where's your kid? That's the common theme that gets thrown out all the time. I think I'm just speculating that, but just from the look on their faces and how they interact with you and talk about things and saying, he comes to school. He comes to school every day, he goes to this class. So I think there's like a sense of relief kind of going, it's okay that I can sit there. And I would tell parents all the time, that's my common reply. Not only here, but with my friends that we have in my own community, when people ask me, what's your child gonna do? Well, they start off with, they just might go to the 2-year school. They might. I said, stop. I cut them off and I say,
I agree.
Don't do the just.
Because it's okay.
It's good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. They don't close the door on it. So I think that's what I would say from the parent perspective that I felt from.
So that's the relief that you feel the parents have, is that there is more of a future than, because when you say I'm going to a 4-year school, I'm going to Bethel, or I'm going somewhere, everybody's like, oh, great. But when you do say, when you as a parent or a child, I've watched many kids, my kid being one of them, what are you doing after school? And they don't say, I'm going to school. It's not that people give them like a rude, but they're kind of taken back.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, really? And then when you explain what you're doing, and when the kids have a passion and when they have a path of what they can actually tell people, most people are like, oh wow, that's great,
yeah, that's
right?
awesome.
But we have to
more
change that
right?
perception, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's leading into one of the other questions. Is the question is, what is one of the biggest hurdles that you see preparing kids for graduation in their future? I think that question can also go to like parents also, because us parents get that question just as much as the kids. So how do we, moving forward into year 2, what can we do, I don't want to say better, but differently, in order to get rid of that perception? How do we promote what we're doing? Because my involvement's hopefully going to double. It's not going to get any less, just because the feedback I've gotten. I think I had 10 kids that were interested in coming to work for me. 5 of them did. Yeah. Unfortunately, the summer didn't work out 100% the way we did because of schedule and delays. So it was only the last couple of weeks that they got a real taste of what we do. But how do we change the public's perception on what kids do after school, and how do we market that more? What do we do to change that?
I think it's going to be my initial answer, because I've had it before with things, is we've got to just show that success stories of the kids that are doing it, right?
Yeah. Highlight those.
Yeah, you can't know that it's success until you've seen somebody do that successfully, right? You know, so I can sit and tell them all day. So I'll go back real quick, not to go back. I'll just say this thing, and I think anybody that listens to this or watches, go do your research. If I'm wrong, yell at Jeremy, not me, but I'll be happy to chat, happy to have that conversation. In the state of Minnesota, anyway, the graduation rate for the bachelor's degree for the whole state is 53%. That's in 6 years. The 4-year graduation rate is about 43% of kids that start a 4-year school and graduate in 4 years. Now you could dig deeper as far as, okay, I went to the 4-year school for a semester, I went back to Anoka Tech, figured out I got what I really wanted to be doing, and I'm done with that in 2 years. Okay, that number jumps a little bit higher overall, right? But I've said this to legislators, I've said it to school boards, I've said it to everybody. I said, we are running a school system in a school that is preaching to kids and families and parents, to your point, that just, well, I'm not, my kid's gonna go. But in reality, it is less than 50, and the 53 is, again, that's in 6 years, but that doesn't mean that somebody isn't 23, 24, they went. So it's a gross number, not gross in a bad way. It's because talked about, that's not what a kid wants to be doing a lot of the time.
Right.
Okay, so they went and wasted a lot of money, a lot of time. So going back to your thing about what do we do in the field, we got to show the successes. We got to show the outcomes of it. We got to show the happy kid that's willing to say, yeah, I was happy as heck because I went and did this. We're not going to know that. I can give you outcomes from down in probably Dakota County of kids that did that we had throughout the years. But these kids, it's going to be the kid that went to the 2-year thing, and in 5 years he comes back and says, I own my own XYZ company right now.
Right.
Or I'm doing this for another company. And the problem is we also don't get that kid who comes back after 6 years and says, I never graduated from college. I went for 2 years to wherever, you name it. I won't name names of 4-year schools, but I went there, didn't like it. Now I'm doing whatever and I'm loving it, right? We don't ever hear that story. You'll hear it eventually, but that's down the road.
You probably hear that when you're at the golf course, or you're at a kid's soccer game, or you're
6 years later.
You don't ever hear it in schools or like
Yes.
in the prime time.
So our goal this year, again, and this district has done a good job, and if anybody's out there that's part of the Spring Lake Park schools or want access to that, I'm sure Jeremy could get it, or I could. We do a community industry spotlight, which is another thing the district did in the last year. They started doing that as I kind of came on. Our first year we did a little bit of just kind of a spotlight thing, but last year we kind of went more of an industry spotlight, which spotlighted all of our pathways courses. But we had some great stories about individual kids that went through, that some that worked with you in the past and some that are doing other things, but we highlighted that now, right?
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not knocking the highlight of the valedictorian kid or the kid that's got the perfect ACT score. That's great too. That's a skill set that we need in this world.
Let's be honest, those are the minority students. There's only 1 or 2 or 3 of them in every graduating class. What's the other 97% doing?
And we know an outcome right now. You could name the 5 kids that worked with you. We could name the kids who got jobs right now. We could have those kids come and tell stories. So that's part of what my job is too, is I got to keep advocating for those kids, for those families, for that. And just, again, let them spit that message out. Our district does a good job with that. Our district lets us do that. So that's why I'm here. I've told people that too before. Like, I didn't need to come here, but I saw when they had the thing, and what the posting was, career pathways lead, or whatever they call it. Well, then I look at what that meant and kind of how they had to lead out there. I didn't mind doing my other alternative learning stuff because I help with that too. And those are kids who struggle with school for different ways. And I always say they're extremely talented, good kids. Life got in the way at times, right? But I look at this thing, the district said, hey, we want to take this and keep running with it. And not just in the trades, obviously, but in the medical field, in the business one.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at robotics, automation. That's another goal of mine, cybersecurity. We are going to try to go on and expand. The beauty of this thing that I've said forever and ever again, I said this week again, is that you can't hide this. Okay, and I tell everybody all the time.
That's a great way to put it.
There was a pile of wood out there last September.
Well, there was 9 concrete
pillars.
There's
a parking lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a house sitting there now, right? And we can't hide that in education. So anybody talks about relevance of education, and to your point, my wife is a 4th grade teacher in the Shakopee district and that. So I've been around education my whole life. She's in it too. She sees them at that early stage. I see them at this stage, and she'll tell me, I can tell this kid is going to get to middle school height and they're going to get lost just because I can tell they're a kid that needs to be doing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying, and I'm proud of my wife. She does try to make that happen even at that age. It's a little bit harder, but she goes, I could tell you. But that's where my point goes, okay, then let's have kids do it. And I always tell the staff whenever we talk about it, I'm like, you can't hide that. You can't hide the house that's sitting out there now.
No.
There wasn't anything there, and now it's there. So that's the thing I think that if the parents tell their stories, we need them. We need them to tell the story to their family, their friends, relatives, whoever, be proud of it, that, hey, my kid was in a construction trade set. No different than they would be proud of saying my kid's in all AP honors classes.
Right.
And that's fine.
Or my kid's going to XYZ college, or my kid's...
And that's fine too.
Yeah.
Because that's what they chose to do. But
Right.
that, that's going to be their work for that part. My work is just to make sure that our kids are happy, they're successful, they're doing what they want to do. The district has held up their end of the bargain. They give us our industry spotlights. Say, let's bring in industry partners for these events. Scott is tremendous by having people stop by. He's sharing cards with people. He's stopping by businesses. He's talking. But yeah, we'll need parents to tell the story about how their kid was happy, how they enjoyed what they were doing. And maybe that'll be the story of, hey, they did it, but they don't want to do it. I'll give you a quick story. We have a young man who he was working on the house thing, but he kind of started balking away a little bit as we got into the roof side of things. Well, he's a teenage young man. He didn't like to get up on the roof. It took us a while. Yes, it took us a while to find that out, right? But then it was like, yeah, I pulled him aside and said, why are you not coming all the time, this and that? Well, and then it came out that, so Scott and I easily just pulled him aside and said, you're not going on the roof.
Yeah.
We need people to pick up nails. We need people to hand up the shingles. We need people to hand up the siding. That's fine. Now you know that. But he likes framing. He likes working in that. Just the roof was not his thing. Well, he learned that now versus I was told him in the story that day, I said, if I were to try to get you a job with a construction company and day 2 they said, we're putting a roof on this place, we're gonna do roofs for the next month. Well, you probably would have walked out.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're a good worker, you're a good framer, but you would have walked out and wouldn't have told them that, and then therefore you would have looked like you failed at that job. But I said, now you can walk into a company and say, I'll frame, I'll make trusses in a warehouse. I can't, just, heights are not for me, so sorry,
So real world experiences is like, I think in November 8th, it'll be our 15-year anniversary. And I think in that 15 years, if I counted, I don't know exactly, it's over like 90 some employees. And with that, age ranging from, 16 to 60, what we've gotten to, we probably average a crew size of anywhere from 6 to 8 throughout the years. Is real world experiences is like you want everybody to do everything, but when you actually get out there and you work and you become a team, you just know that there's certain people on the team that do this and there's certain people on the team that do that. And for a kid to be able to have the confidence to tell a future employer or a current employer that, hey, I'm going to give you 100% here, but I can't do that because my mind is not there because I'm a little scared and I'm not going to be productive for you. For a kid to know that is invaluable.
It's huge.
It's huge. I think the 2 takeaways that I had from the year is I love when you say that about the parents, like as much as the kids spotlighting what's happening and showing what's happening. Pre-COVID, I was working with a few of my trade partners and we were trying to get things like this. We had some momentum and then COVID hit. And getting involved with your program was huge. And like Sydney and I, we talk about it almost every day. Every time we get ready for one of these podcasts or we get ready to do some kind of media, it's just amazing that all of the cool things in the story that we can tell, because let's just be honest, in the world of social media, if we can portray what we do and how cool it is, the kids love it, right? The second thing is, I had thought this for years, but throughout the year, I actually just sat down with Sanan a couple weeks ago and we were talking about it. And what I love about your program and what all of the stuff that the career pathways and all of the robotics and what Bill and them are doing, all of these different outside the box thinking programs are doing, is we as an industry need to do better to give you information to show the kids what our industry does. Colleges have $1 million of budgets to hand you whatever you want, and they can say, you come here and you have this, and this, and you have all these opportunities. And I think what I saw this year is I saw more small businesses with your help facilitating it, bringing you stuff to show kids what we do in our industry or different industries, and all of a sudden the kids' eyes are just lighting up a little bit, because it's not the standard, here's 6 colleges you can go to. Here's a 2-year school, a 4-year school, and 3 different jobs that you can go and get educated and get paid. So now, rather than just having the 2-year and the 4-year school, you have 4 or 5 or 6 opportunities to give to kids. And I think we as businesses need to keep growing and expanding and helping you guys with that information, because you can't give out information that you don't have.
Or that I don't know. I mean,
Or that you don't
first
know.
one, I hope I do that. I always tell everybody, I hope I do this. If I don't know something, I'm going to get the people that do. And that's why having people like you come in, having other industry, I'm like, get the experts in there, get the people who know what they're doing. I even tell people, I say, well, you're the education person, you tell us about that. I can tell you some of it. I'm a non-traditional education person, so I can tell you the non-traditional side of things. But I got to get people under the professionals, right?
Yeah.
And the college problem, and I'm not anti-college by any means, but it's like there's a lot of theory, and it's a lot of theory of what that building could look like. And I always tell people, like, it's not a theory of that house that's sitting there right now, Able and 81st. That is a house. The kids built it. They created that. They can walk away, they can touch it, feel it, do that. There's not theory of, you could teach that, and I've been, we kind of had that back and forth at one point in time. Well, we want to make sure we're teaching about da 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 da. I said, there'll be a time and place for that, in my opinion. We've got to let kids, in a safe manner, in the right way, learn those things, but we got to let them build, create, and do, and not just say in theory,
screw up and problem solve.
Mess it up, have the cold weather hit, which it did, have the rain day hit, have the
and
snow
those kids were
removal.
out there and they were in their jackets and their gloves, and they learned one day that they had to bring warmer gloves the next day, and guess what? They showed up with warmer gloves. We had community service give all those jackets, and all of a sudden it made it possible.
Gloves. I mean, so that's what you say, like when you go to your thing and say, hey guys or gals, whoever's on your crew, like, we got to clear this off today because we had a windstorm last night. Well, in a theory classroom, you don't ever deal with the elements or changes like that. Scott's kids and these kind of things, like, I mean, they didn't get everything, right? But dang near. But it's like, they're going to walk on a job site someday or whatever day they decide to do that. I remember that. I remember the day we had to do that. They can at least say it. They're not experts in it yet because it's been one time, but that's a big part. I just am so adamant about the fact that kids got to do things and not just hear about it.
Yeah,
and
I've never heard someone say about the 4-year school. I like the way you put that. It's all based on theories, because for the past 20, 25 years I've been in this, and then when I started in high school, and watching my uncle and different people that I worked for a production builder for a few years, and we work with architects and engineers and designers that are 10 times smarter than I ever could be
in their area.
And here's the funny thing about that is the best engineers for me are the ones that actually come on site when I have a problem and say the information or an architect for that, or a designer for that matter.
Oh yeah.
When I say your drawing or your schematic doesn't work, the ones that just sit on the phone and go, well, they have to because the numbers add up. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not on site and you can't take in consideration that one footing might be lower than the other. One board might not be 7 1/4, it's 7 3/8. There's so many factors. Mm-hmm. But the ones that come out on site and actually problem solve with you, I think those are probably the ones that actually have some real world experience with it. So it's not so much theories, because they're putting all the elements into play and then using their because I can't do the calculations.
Yeah,
I can engineer a header and stuff based on my knowledge and my experience. But if I needed to get that for the inspector and tell him what the point load of that, I can figure it out, but it's going to take me a couple days. You know what I mean? So absolutely. I love that hand, like you said, do it, like touch it, work with it. One of the things, all those Jenga blocks right there, I had to figure out. One of the biggest problems we have on site, one of the biggest problems Scott and I had throughout the year, was getting kids to cut straight and accurately and consistent, right? Because I worked with a guy for years where he'd say 27 1/4, and he really wanted a 27 1/8, because I always consistently, after 20 years of doing it, I cut things an 1/8 inch long. So when I work with someone consistently, they know how to measure that properly. And so there's 54 pieces in the Jenga set, and I figured, well, shoot, that's probably 70 to 90 cuts depending on what kind of wood we have. And I made the kids, everyone has to be the same, they have to be square. And it took them a while, but all of a sudden, when you're sitting there for an hour doing 50 to 90 cuts, all of a sudden it starts to click.
Yeah.
But then when you put them into the field and it's practical and you have to like work with the elements and it's not such a stage. Yeah, and it is. And I think one of the biggest things is you can ask Justin, the guy that runs my company. He has learned from every big mistake that he's made, and some of the biggest mistakes he made were early on in his career. And to this day, 10 years later, we joke about it. And I always ask him, and when we talk to kids or talk to new people, I go, have you made that mistake again? And he's like, well, hell no.
Yeah. Now, if it's a big one or one, it's one that you remember. Right. But you can't make a mistake till you try.
Right.
I mean, on a computer, you hit delete. And that's the problem with nowadays, a lot of these things, and not nowadays, I mean, we're not that old, either of us, but it's like, you can hit delete and start over again. Well,
or undo, redo.
Undo, redo.
You can redo your mistake.
You know, when you're cutting boards, when you're cutting those things. But the other piece, and I learned that from watching my dad through all those years, I used to go to those construction sites in the summers with him building those bridges. And, you know, he just, all those little tricks of the trade. Okay, you cut that board a little bit too short. Well, we have this way to use that board in another manner instead of throwing it out. Like, he's born in 34, so he's in that little, around that post-depression, you know, he didn't throw anything out.
No,
like when we would rebuild the house,
every nail they pulled, and there's buckets in
we
their garages.
It, but he would look at this and go, well, if you're going to redo this, why would you get rid of that? That's all good. So we would take everything
cut it apart, pull all the nails,
and then we would build a new shop with it. You know, so but I just learned those things like reuse. And Scott would tell you, saying, like, man, I'm bad, not bad the way I'm good for the education community out there, the taxpayer. I say we use everything we can first before we start getting, you know, why not use what you have and find a way to use it before we start saying, oh, we need this, we need this, we need this. It's like, let's use what you got, because that's also practical. I mean, I'm not a business owner. I've never owned my own business, but I've seen it from the outside. I've talked to enough people. I know enough small business owners that that's product, that's a cost, that's an item that if we can use it and use it properly and in the right manner, why would you not?
Yeah.
But having kids practically do those things, see that stuff, saying, oh, okay, Scott's going, well, you've seen Scott's class. So in his intro class, they build dog houses, chicken coops, all these other things.
Well, it's all scraps.
It's scraps from the other stuff, right? So it's not about us saying, well, we need all this new stuff to do that. Scott's tremendous at that, going like, oh, we got some siding donated, okay.
And they profited on that.
We profited, yeah. So
and the kids were able to do a lot of really cool things because of scrap.
Hey, you look at that and you tell me what you want to make out of it, versus saying, well, that's no good anymore. So it's that kind of stuff that if they don't get to do it and try it, they're not going to try it till they come to you the first time, and then maybe they will screw up multiple times, and that's annoying to a business owner or somebody else eventually, but you also understand. But
I always tell kids, like, I want you to make a mistake, I just don't want you to make the same mistake over and over again. Like, basically in framing a house, so I've built an $18,000 square foot house down to a 2,000 square foot house in my 20 some years doing it. And what I always tell people is, we don't ever build the same thing twice, but you do the same thing, repetition every day. Whether it's a 10-foot wall that's 50 foot long or a 2-foot wall that's 4 foot long, the process on how to build that wall doesn't change, right? And I think one of the big things that you talk about waste is, as a subcontractor, I can not only save my team can not only save us money and make us money by being more clean and organized, but we save the homeowner and the builders more money because we're not throwing away 4-foot chunks that I was just on site this week and we were talking about it. We have a whole bunch of different small little punch out things to do. And my team was going around because it's a 12,000 square foot house that we're building. So we have piles of scrap kind of organized throughout the job site. And we were sitting there going through, because we're coming to the tail end of the project. And my team was going, well, we have that stack of 4-foot 2x6s out back that we knew we saved. We have that scrap of 2-foot by 4-foot plywood over there. Can we use that anywhere? And when this job soup or the builder, the homeowner comes and hears those conversations, that's a win.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're like, even though they wouldn't think about it if they didn't hear the conversation, but when they hear that conversation, they're like, oh wow, they're really thinking about that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's such a great, I'm excited. How are the numbers this year?
They're high. I mean, we're 45 in the house build, so that would be 22 and 23 kids in each of the
And
sections.
can you, I know you and I have kind of talked, but can you tell what kind of the plan is for the trade? We're going to build that shed?
Build a shed.
Are we going to build another house?
We'll do another house, yep. So,
Okay.
So
that'll be started just a little bit later?
A little bit later, but it's going to be probably a smaller footprint. And the reason why is up in this area, which hindsight, again, here's the hindsight. The houses we built before in Rosemont at DCTC were out in the middle of, if anybody's ever been to DCTC campus, there's nothing around there, right?
Yeah.
The UMR lands, it's pretty open, right?
Yeah.
So taking a house out of there, typically those houses will go down into the Coates area, Farmington, Lakeville, kind of south, pretty open, right? In Spring Lake Park, coming out of Spring Lake Park High School, established older community with trees that have grown up on the side. The builders, we've used Odding movers out of Lakeville. Bill, who's a great guy down there, they moved around the other houses that I was a part of. Talking to Bill this summer about it, it's things that I knew about, dropping lines in space, and I got that. And Bill's a pro at, they do all this stuff. But he said it's not only that, I remember there's trees on the side of the roads, and the house that we built is big, and so some of these streets are tree covered a little
As
bit.
wide as the
So
street.
as he said, it's not about the lines. But he goes, I start knocking people's trees down, then all of a sudden somebody gets complaint, whatever. But what we're going to do is probably a smaller footprint, and we will work with Bill closer this year. And I think we have some things with our partner Jeremy LeBon that we'll look at. I think we have some probably better set of who would want this out. What organizations and where the locations would be. And then we'll work with Odding to figure out, the 1 year, and I always butcher this, so you help me. We built we didn't build a flat roofed home, but we built, I don't even know what the term is, but there's
lower pitch.
Yeah, there was a lower pitch,
lower.
but there was also one they built where they didn't put the full peak. They built the rest of it when they got it on site a little bit later.
Really?
Yeah, they kind of almost did I don't even know what they called it.
Was it kind of a modular?
Yeah, it's a similar, just like this thing out here, except they knew where they were going with it, that they were going to have trouble. So they almost put on, I don't know if they want to say they laid down the trusses, but almost built an addition to the truss.
They had a piggyback on top, so the one truss is this, and then you only build up so far, and then you move it, and then you come and put the peak
and
on.
there you go. What'd you call it? Piggyback?
A piggyback.
I think that's what.
So a lot of trusses on these big houses that with the big steep roofs.
Yeah.
The trusses just come that way because they can't physically make the trusses. So
Sure.
we'll build them and they'll be shaped like that.
Yep.
And then after we get everything set and braced, we go back as we're sheeting and we put that
That's
top
what
back
they
on.
did with one
Yeah.
of them, out of the
Yeah.
5 that I was a part of down there. So I don't think we want to do that. I think we'll just, and the deal about it is that we've found out up here too in this area, some of these lots that are tear down lots, or they're just not equipped for a 56-foot wide home,
Right.
Or 20, so we'll reconfigure the design. It'll be similar model, probably 2-bedroom upstairs, 2-bath type deal with the basement, but we're just going to probably shrink that down a little bit. Maybe Scott's already knows this, but maybe a little bit less pitch, depending on. Hopefully, we know now after 1 year, and we've had the communication with people, and they've communicated with Jeremy about where this thing would go, so that would cut out that barrier.
Yeah, and that was a lot of those connections were people and organizations. I think we said it earlier that came to you and said, "What are you going to do with that house?" So that kind of opened the doors to a lot of different pathways
absolutely.
as far as what to build and what to do.
And I mean, again, we're not the owner of it, but I can say from the guy, this Jeremy LeBeau that owns it, and Jeremy's been a tremendous partner with the schools, and he's in it for the right reason. This is not his A-game business. This is about getting kids into trades, and it really is. And so he's looking to do this thing to get it to those types of situations.
Yeah.
Affordable housing, affordable situation. This is not a moneymaker. It's a break-even thing. And I don't think he has any issue with me saying that, because he has told me that, and he's told other people that. It's about getting the kids interested in trade. He grew it. He's like you. He started when he was 18 or 19, right out of high school, doing his stuff. He's done it forever, built himself up in a good situation. But we got involved with him about 5. So we've always been involved in years before that, but really in the house build project about probably 5-6 years ago, where he kind of approached and said, "Look, if you got if this will help get the kids doing the thing, it's materials. It's mine when it's done." but I just want to get them in there. You know, like you come over and helped a tremendous amount this fall with the framing, with the roofing, all that. His guys come and do the electrical and the plumbing. They come in during the insulation time, the sheetrocking time. They show the kids. They let the kids watch it. They let them try it, flooring. So, you know, it's that kind of partnerships with everybody. And I would say whoever's listening to this and when they listen, if you want to come in at any time and Scott and show kids a trade or a skill that you have, all you gotta do is let us know. Get a hold of you, get a hold of us, whatever. I mean, that's what it's all about in reality. This isn't about making sure that a house gets built and then we just send it away. No. It's all those skill sets in between there that we want to make sure the kids are exposed to. And if they can be exposed to it and from a professional, then we've done our job with it, and then we've done what we're supposed to do. The house is going to happen. I mean, it's going to get done, things like that. But if we can expose them to all those different things along the way, from pros to, I still remember the sheetrockers that came in and you know, and they're just showing these kids, and I think you were in there for one of the times, but watching these guys, and I've butchered my own house with sheetrock, and we've all done it with, you know, I kind of said I grew up, we've never, I mean, pardon all the concrete guys out here that are watching this, but I mean, you know, my dad built bridges for it. We've never paid a contractor to pour a lick of concrete my whole life. I've done it, me, my brothers, and we've done all our own work. So I'm a white collar school worker guy, but on the weekends, you know, we tie steel, we do all, but we want to I mean, when they saw a guy coming in doing the sheetrock and say, oh yeah, we do this. Oh, why do you do it that way? Oh, and then Scott's even kind of going, wow, okay.
Well, I always,
that's pretty slick.
Drywall always makes, so my dad is an auto body man, and by no means is he fast at drywall, but I guarantee it's the best finish you could ever possibly imagine because he was an auto body man. But I get people when I help them with drywall, they're like, you're quick, and I start laughing, and I'm like, you have no clue, because the guys that know how to do it, I mean, they put corner bead on like,
oh my gosh,
like nobody's business. I mean, taper and mutters, there's two different things, because you have hangers and then you have tapers.
Yeah.
And it's just like anything, watching electricians device, you know, do the final devicing and pulling wire, HVAC guys.
Even insulation.
Oh,
you know, the guys that come, the same guy has been coming to do insulation for like 6 years with the kids in the other house too. It's like just showing these little things about around the outlets and around other things, and kids are going, oh, I mean, it's just little things. And he looks at it and says, this is because I've been doing it for 30 years. I didn't know this when I was your age, so don't worry about it.
And I couldn't have learned it in a school. I had to physically do it. I had to try it. I had to be screw up. I had to have have someone tell me to do it a little bit different.
But I'm showing you now. You're getting the nice free 30-year advice here or thing. So all that stuff's just, it's so cool. It's awesome. We have a good time with it. But
so where do you? We'll kind of start to wrap up here. Where do you see? We're in year 2. Lots of momentum, lots of forward progress, lots of opportunities. Where do you see the program going in the next 2 to 5 years?
I mean, I think the house build project is kind of the cornerstone, right? I think what I would like to see is, again, I try to stay up to date with these things from the industry, right? So we want to hear from industry. I mean, I think of things such as, you know, we've got robotic machines pouring concrete now. We've got houses being built. We got, you know, I was at Mortensen Construction, brought a group of kids down there because they kind of had a setup with some colleges where the kids could go into construction management, construction maintenance, right? But listening to we got to listen from their president down there talk that day, and he's talking about the idea that right now, Mortensen, big builders of the Viking Stadium, they have 12 or 15 of the state capitals around the United States. They've got 7 or 8 of the newest stadiums from the NFL. He's talking about their hotel builds, and he's saying, you know, we're having, and I don't like this part of it, but let's just say in another part of the world, we're building some of our framing of it. We're creating hotels in a month because we have everything's pre-framed, it's pre-done. We're bringing them in, we're dropping them with our cranes. The building is built, and we're using, you know, we're using some other kind of, you know, hybrid woods, or whatever term you want to use it. But they're building these things pre-done, lack of a better term, right? Well, you know, that was a new thing. I didn't bug them about that at that point in time. I followed through with it, but I always kind of keep an eye out. So I think what our idea is, you know, it's okay, we're building this house, which again, these kids aren't master electricians, master framers, master plumbers, or anything. We just want to keep that. That's a tremendous cornerstone. And the other reason I'll say it, I think I'm accurate because I've tried to check this, and I think I sent you the list. There's only about, it might be less than that now, there was about 16 houses being built around the whole state of Minnesota by high school programs as of about 4 or 5 years ago. That's probably even dwindled since then. So I mean, when you start saying let's say whatever, there's, I don't know how many districts in the state, 1,000 school districts or some goofy number, but you start saying there's 15 student-built houses in the state of Minnesota, and if Spring Lake Park High School can be one of those, I'm gonna do everything I can, because that is extremely unique. If you go down the big numbers, that's extremely, extremely rare. It's a small percentage. So that would be a cornerstone. I think we need to get into what kids want. I think it's going to be kid directed a little bit, because what's going to happen when Scott and I talk about this, now we have 9th graders, 10th graders can take his intro to trades class, but they can't build a house till they're juniors or seniors, right? Yeah. So there could be that gap time in there, or it could be that a kid does it in 10th grade, his intro class, 11th grade, he's still got to get some other courses done. So their senior year, they're building. Well, how do we fill in those other gaps, right? So I think that's one thing that we'll have to look at, whether it gets into construction maintenance, construction management, design. So CAD, we do have a course over there to how to make almost anything, where they do CAD design things, but they're doing more CAD designs to build a 3D print of this microphone.
And the robotic stuff and all that stuff,
right? Yeah. But I would like to see us get into some of that world of that, see where that keeps progressing. We're tied with Ames Construction, JE down some major big companies. I sit on this Construct Tomorrow board in Minnesota, the K-12 representative, so I'm proud of that. I'm the only representative in K-12 of the whole state of Minnesota that sits on that Construct Tomorrow. So I get to see those people and talk to them about what's the next thing. Drone work, 3D design, 3D imaging. We have Jay Dunn come every year, Rick Myrie, who's one of their senior project managers who does the state capitol. They're doing the dorms at the U of M. They do things all over the whole country. Rick's showing the kids how they run the drone in here to run where the pipes are at, where the electrical's at, where there's loss, where there's framing that might be stressed a little bit. And when they redid that Capitol basement, they ran that sucker through there, got their print for it. They could take it back and say, okay, here's where we need to do a little bit different things. So
they're doing all the storms that come through the last few months. A lot of the bigger storm chaser restoration companies are doing roof inspections with drones. Rather than getting up on the roof and doing it, they're getting up and they're doing all their roof inspections with.
Yeah, that's gonna be tied to Britain. My dad bridges his whole life. Well, guess what? The old days, the old days, you bring the boat underneath, you bring the mini barge underneath, and you try to get on. Now they have the lifts. I know they go underneath the bridge. You can get the arm underneath there. Well, now it's going to be drones. They're going to check these bridges to make sure they're safe. When the 35W bridge went down, my dad, asking him those years ago, what do you think? And he said those plates will shift. He knew that because he's done for so long. They don't build those kind of bridges that big. Yeah. But he said those plates shift. They got the shift plate in there. They got the gaps because in this climate, it's brutal, right? But it's things like that I hope that, Scott doesn't have the capacity for it because he's doing the intro, which he's full. He's got 30 kids every try. It's jammed full of kids. That's as many as we can take. He's got his house class full. Okay. So what's the next layer to that? And I think what we're going to listen to is people like you. We're going to listen to anybody else that's listening to this that wants to come forward to us and say anything. I always go back to instead of education saying, here's what we're doing because we know it best. Why would I don't know the construction industry best? You do, your partners do, your friends do, the people in the Housing First group, those you guys know. So you got to come to us and say, these are the things that we would like your kids to be doing. It's our job then to either decide yay or nay, can we actually fit it in? If we can't, I'll be blunt with people. I've been blunt with you at times. Other people no, we can't do that, but yes, we can do this. Yeah. So where do you see in the next 2 to 5 years? We're gonna, as long as I have the ability to do it, we'll keep building a house because that's something that a kid can. We would tell everybody you can drive by with your kid someday, and do that. That doesn't happen here. You can't drive. You can drive by Spring Lake Park High School and say, "Hey, remember that math class up there in that corner? I did a paper in that classroom." Your kid's gonna look at you like,
"Oh, the math class, that classroom."
And I'm not knocking the math.
No, but that classroom is different than it was when you were there, probably because everything in the school changes.
It's gone away,
and you don't see it.
But you might be able to take your kid by in 10 years, 15 years, say, "See that house in the corner? I built that." Right?
Well, like we said earlier, the 12 houses or whatever, I can probably drive by 4 or 5. I know 4 or 5 of them for sure. And my kids, when we take bike rides, they get sick of it because every time we drive by them, hey, the trades class built that in '98. That's, and I'm sure someday they'll appreciate it.
Yep.
But those are the memories that I have. A lot of the guys that I graduated with have reached out and they're just like, God, how did you get involved with that? It's so great to see that back. And I truly do believe that a lot of the people that I grew up with in this community that took those classes, even though they may not be doing that as a career, the best thing about everything that we're teaching these kids, if you're going to be a homeowner or you're going to be an adult someday, all of this stuff coincides
yes,
with
yes,
that.
yeah. I'm glad
Like you talk
said
about
that.
being a homeowner, like you're a teacher and you're in education, but thank God you learned that all from how much money have you saved yourself throughout the years in your family just by being able to fix something, being able to take something apart and put it back together.
I'm so glad you said that, because I don't know why I missed that early on. I'm glad. Scott and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the other purposes going through there, and we try to get young ladies. So this year we got 8 young ladies signed up for the house build, right? We had 1 last year, we have 8 this year. Well, I'll take the intro, but we say it to them. I'm glad you said it, because I always tell people that in schools that I noticed throughout the years I did these things, a lot of kids want to take the auto class, right? A lot of the guys, and there's some girls do it, but they always took autos. And people always say, well, why is your auto class so full? Why do you guys have a waiting list there? Everybody has a car. Or at least everybody's in that class. Well, you want to have your car running, you want to have it going, you want to make it look nice, you want to do your things. And if you can fix it yourself, again, save yourself a lot of money. But that's why kids jump into that. Why do kids jump into the computer classes and video game classes?
Because they know they use it.
Because they do it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our thing is that why do you want to jump into this construction? Well, maybe not big, but you're going to own a house. If your knob falls off, if your light, if you have a basic understanding, a little bit, fixing a hole in the wall. So I'm glad you said that, because Scott talks about that a lot in his intro class. Like, look, you're going to learn this. I mean, it's funny. You've been in there. You saw it, because kids running a drill the first few times trying to put a screw in, and they're barely holding it, and then it's ba-doom, ba-doom, or the nail is pounding, and it's going ba-doom, ba-doom. And it's like, all it takes is what? 2 days?
Yeah, I just said that on site yesterday. We were kind of just wrapping up, because I was going to be in the office here today doing this stuff, and I was talking to Kevin and Emily on site, and I'm like, isn't it just amazing watching these young kids use drills? Because they know how to use them, and it's super simple, but to effectively use it, you have to know that it's got to be square, and you got to know all that. And these kids, by physically doing it, one of the greatest weeks of my year last year is when we built that wall and we let the kids put drywall up, tape it on it, and then demo it. Because you think a sledgehammer is just a sledgehammer, but there's a way to use a sledgehammer effectively. Mm-hmm. And people just think it's just a malt. No, there's a way to do it. Like, and back to the taping and mudding, like, good tapers and mudders will say the less you use, the better it is. And I always was like, well, you gotta put a lot of blood on it to make it look good.
That's what I would do, go out and on, and then.
And you know where I said earlier, like pre-COVID, I was really trying to get involved. Being having kids in sports and getting to know the families. I had one mom. I think our boys they must have been squirts, so they're 5th or 6th grade, and we were all young 30-year-old parents back then, so we're just kind of starting to get into our house. And I had one mom go, can you teach my kids to patch drywall? And that was 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I was like, well, why don't I have my hockey kids? That's something I could do with my hockey team. You can come into the shop and we can teach you to do silly things like that. You know, I think about Big Nick. He's going to be a senior this year. I'm going to help him with his Eagle Scout project, and he's in the trades program. And it's those types of things, the scouts, you know. One of the kids this year, at the beginning of the year, I couldn't recognize him because I hadn't seen him in 4 or 5 years. I hadn't seen him since scouts. And he was swinging a hammer like a real carpenter. Yeah. And I looked at him and I go, where did you learn to swing a hammer like that? And he turns and looks at me and he goes, from you. And I'm like, and I kind of knew who he was. Sure. And then all of a sudden he goes, Jeremy, we were at scout camp and you told me I was putting in a spike for a tent spike, and you told me to swing the hammer like a man. And he was. He remembers. So I'm not like, you know, but and it's those types of things. I remember my kids. They're not afraid of nail guns because they've been like we've been building birdhouses and all that stuff in the shop, and all these kids, as I've watched my kids grow up and as they become young adults. Just the silly things that you do at home that you, like you said, all these kids are going to remember that day on site at class. Sure. Well, they remember that when they're kids too. So the more that we can get kids involved just doing things, I just feel like it's fixing and taking care of your own things is a lost art.
Oh yeah. It's just easy to buy. It's just you go buy a new one. Yeah. And now, like, I truly do believe that 85% of these kids that are in this program will at least attempt to fix or repair their own things throughout their life. But, and it's not going deep philosophically here, but also on the flip side, like, it's good for a community because guess what? You do have your buddies that come and bug you. Hey, can you come, because they know what you do. My dad, could you come and help, growing up, like, and that's just how you do it though, right?
Yeah.
You do it because they're your friends and this and that. But it also does create that other environment of going, hey, I gotta put in a screen door, could you come and help me? Because I know you kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, it's camaraderie, right? It's also just kind of being a good neighbor, being a good thing. No different than if you know somebody in the medical field and you're not feeling well, who are you gonna ask? You're gonna go ask someone that does that, right? And that's fine. And but that's part of building community, camaraderie, community, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? And it provides those other things that are just kind of cool for kids. Like, I think it does give these kids like a little like, hey, you know how to do that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, could you come and, and hey, Nick's in that class. I know they built that house, Mom. If he came over, I know you said you needed whatever. Nick, do you know how to do that? Well, yeah, I know how to do that. Okay. It just gives no different than the kid who comes and I would say, hey, I'm struggling with my math assignment, and I'm going to call the kid that class that I know it's good at math.
Yeah.
That's cool too.
Yeah.
It's cool for that kid. So like I said, going way back to the beginning of this conversation, it's okay to know what you don't know. It's okay to try what you've never tried before, and then it's okay to figure out that I don't like it or I do like it.
Yeah.
And it's okay in all those gamut of doing that and not being like, well, I'm not going to try it because I can't do it. Well, we don't know yet.
Right.
Or I'm not going to try it because I don't like that. And I always ask kids, well, what? I still give a quick story. We went to the steelworkers down on Minnehaha down there with the kids. And those guys were always good. They let them get in a lift, go up and down, they mess around with, but they got to tie steel, right? And so I had these couple little Hispanic girls who were, and they're like, I said, hey, jump in and try, because it's part of the Construct Tomorrow crew, and they always let us come in there, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it. I said, do you know what that is? And they're like, no. And I said, have you ever driven by, I think at the time they were working on over the high bridge or something down there, and we'd come up from Dakota up into there. And I said, do you remember driving by that thing we came up, there's all that green stuff kind of just laying on that bridge deck, kind of looking at that, and they're like, yeah. And I said, what do you think that's for? And they said, I said, that's what this stuff is. It's called rebar. They got to tie it together because you're going to pour concrete over so it doesn't move. But I said, now when you drive by there with your kids someday, tie some steel right now.
Yeah.
You're not going to work in concrete,
No.
but tie the steel, because when you drive by with your kids someday, you can say, hey, that's rebar. I did some of that one day. One time, whatever. Well, they jumped in, tied it up a little bit, and I said, then be done. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
You've
That was a
done
good field trip. That was fine. You maybe don't want to do it, but now when you go by, you can tell your kid, hey, that's what that is. And I used to preach that to kids all the time. Just like that's why we try to take kids out on in general. So speaking about, we try to get them out on tours to companies.
So many great.
To say when they drive by, they go, well, what's that place?
I think
And then they could at least answer it and go, oh, they do X, Y, Z in there, but I don't like it, but that's what they do in there. Well, what a knowledge, right? I mean,
I think I went with on 2 or 3 of those things this year, and
yeah, you were able to go down to general equipment down for me.
that was just as gratifying. Like I think I probably got more out of it than some of the kids, but all those companies that are putting on those events, they're doing such a great job with the interaction. Like that at General, and they that little backhoe, and you put the soccer ball in the garbage can.
Yep.
It looks easy, but it's not.
It's not. But they got to sit. Like I mean, unless you worked for a company that had that, or your grandpa had it on the farm, or your uncle, or your dad, or whoever. Like you're not going to sit in one of those and get to mess with it. But they got to do it that day. And that's the big thing we do the field trips. So going back to what's our next ideation, like continue to expand those opportunities, continue to expand the opportunities for hands-on, for tours, for events. We're going to do a transportation day here on October 2nd.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of bring in RDO and Walzer and General Equipment and Blaine Brothers again and those kind of people. And we'll get them out in the parking lot by the house, and like we did last year. And they bring some equipment, they bring some stuff, but the kids get to kind of mess around with it, try it out, and see it and kind of feel it. And if they like it, then we go to the next layer. They go do more of a tour. But I always say to kids, like, you get a chance to do it. You may never do it again, but you can always say, like I used to tell my own kids, we used to go to the Extreme Sandbox out in Hastings, right? So we got to know that guy a little bit, Randy Stanger, super nice guy. We used to bring kids down there on trips, and that you get to drive a bulldozer, you get to drive a skid steer, a bobcat, a crane. I grew up with my dad, so I do a little bit on construction, not too much for safety reasons, but I get to sit in there a little bit. But in that day down there, like you're driving a crane, you're driving a bulldozer.
Yeah.
You ain't driving a bulldozer unless, so it's pretty awesome to have kids just try things and do things. So.
Well, we'll try to wrap some things up. I guess one of the last things is you kind of answered where we're going. So if there's parents or kids or business owners that want to get involved and help, how do they get a hold of you?
So it's, my name's Eric Van Brocklin.
I'll share all the
share my
with
credentials, share my email. Just email me, call me, whatever. Happy to have them get my cell phone number too. I don't care. I get people doing that. That's the easiest way to do it.
And we're looking for speakers. We're looking for any construction company that has extra materials. I can't tell you how many days throughout the year where just a random roofing guy would drop about 3 rolls of ice and water because they're left in his truck and he didn't want to bring them back to the office. So we're talking any of that kind of stuff. If you're an accountant and you want to get involved with just different things in the high school, you at least you're the king of knowing where to go.
Yeah, I mean, I
especially in our district.
Yeah, I typically get the guest speakers for a variety of courses, programs from exercise science all the way to OEC, the medical career. I do some of that stuff, but they kind of have their own thing. But our business classes, cooking class, we had kids go out and look at some chef stuff because they were interested in doing that. And Chef Patty, who's there, is awesome. I help kids get on that type of deal. We send kids to the U of M in the fall for an engineering thing I bring down there. I mean, I'm dumb, but I'm smart because I've been exposed to all these things through other people and through other things. But yeah, if you want, when I always hate to say that, we get the district takes care of us, and I want to say that because I'm in this. I'm not saying because I'm just sitting here. This district does a good job. They take care of their they take care of their schools. They take care of their they take care of that stuff. So I'm not sitting here saying that we don't have the resources we need.
Right.
The unique stuff, right? Which is the unique thing. And again, I always start off with personal power. So the power of you coming in and talking to kids, the power of somebody else. If you have things, if you have materials, if you have other stuff that you have the ability to do because life's been good to you, your company's been fortunate, whatever, certainly reach out. We can have that conversation about what makes sense because I also don't want things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
The other thing I can always guarantee everybody that does that, it's going to go to a kid. I mean, I'm not Jerry Lewis, telethon, but I can, and you've witnessed it, but other people witness it. It goes to our kids. It goes to them to practice with it, to train with it, to do things with it. We're not getting it off of, if we're getting something, it's going to go get used. And we're going to put it in the kid's hand. We're going to use it for training. We're going to use it for opportunities. And when I say not only a product, but also then that tour to your site somewhere else, we're not going to get that. We hope you gain the benefit from it, that you might hire a kid, hire their cousin, their uncle, their aunt, or whoever, right? It's PR work for you. But yeah, anything that you think, and if you have questions about it, anybody that's watching this, reach out to hey, do you think this would be? It's amazing when people say, well, I could just come in and talk to the class. I'm going, well, don't say just again. Yeah. That's awesome. That's huge. And if it goes beyond that, you figure it out. I always tell people, you figure it out. Yeah. What works best for you, and we'll make it, we'll accommodate it. So yeah, anything they want, get a hold of me. I'm happy to, do whatever. We can come out and talk ahead of time like this. I know Scott and I've done that. I like to do that. I like to go to places first and kind of see what makes sense. Because I also don't want, if we do come to your place, we don't want to come and, I'm not going to blindside you. Right. I'm going to talk to you first. I'm going to talk to the company first. Say, hey, here's what we're looking for. Here's what I know kids will want to do. The biggest thing is they want to see things, but they also want to touch things, hear things, walk around, do things. They don't want to sit because they sit in the classroom. They don't want to come and sit in your place and watch you. If you can even have them just, again, see the materials you use or see the stuff like that, I would do that ahead of time with you so that everybody makes it successful for their situation. But yeah, I joke, per school board, say it again on here, as long as it's legal, and as long as it's fairly safe, we'll come and try to make it happen. And again, if we all had the same interest in the same thing, we'd all be doing the same job. That's my thing I learned. I used to do it when I drive around the country with my kids. We go someplace, I drive by these places that have pottery sitting outside their thing. And I always tell my wife, look over and go, just because of my goofy jobs, I'm like, somebody makes that, and somebody loves doing it, and somebody's going to love buying it, right? But you drive down the road, you can't do that for a career. You can't do, well, no, somebody's doing that for a career because they like it, they enjoy it. Somebody's going to buy it. They've known about it, so that's okay. That's everywhere you go, there's somebody doing something that's going to provide a service for somebody.
And if you don't at least get your hands dirty and try to at least attempt it or figure out or just experience it, you will never know what you want to do.
And I'll give you a quick one on that. Young lady yesterday with her parent came in. A little young lady, she's just a little, what do you want to do? She's a senior. What do you want to do next year? If you can be done with this now, I want to put on horseshoes. Now, you're probably going to think I'm like Cliff Clavin or something, but I can tell the honest story. My wife used to teach with a gentleman down in Bloomington where we're at, and he was a teacher, science teacher for about 10 years. He turned into, and there's probably people out there that would know this. I didn't know this term until I met him and learned about it, a farrier. I didn't know what the term farrier was, but that's the official term for somebody that does horseshoes and take care of horse hooves. They're called a farrier. So if you get bored tonight, Google it, Farrier. Well, he said he was going back to be a farrier. Well, he got out of teaching, and I had talked to him. So it's weird that kind of thing happened. But this young lady matched that, and I said, "Oh, so you want to be a farrier?" And just turned her. Well, I'm like, they had no clue what that meant either.
Yeah.
I said, "Trust me, Google it." But I said, it's putting on horseshoes, it's taking care of horse hooves.
Yeah.
The only reason I knew it is because of that guy. But I also, luckily, I had a chance to talk to this guy. Well, it's a dangerous gig. Horses are big. They kick. They don't like you touching their hooves all the time until you've done it. But she wants to be a farrier. So we talked about getting into animal science, maybe do smart things like that. But again, if she wouldn't express that, and we didn't sit there and say, no, you don't.
Yeah.
We said, and her mom said, well, if you do, then here's the things that we should have you try to do. Now, what she's going to do, she signed up to take the welding class that we offer. We team up with Centennial High School. We do a welding small engine repair class. Well, we got her signed up because I said, well, do you want to do that? And I said, do you know what horseshoes are? They're made out of metal. You have to learn to heat metal, bend metal, pound it a little bit, learn to do things. So that's part of all that stuff. Hand tools, you're going to put the hose in. She's like, yeah, that actually sounds kind of... And she had never thought about that, except that she wants to be a farrier. Well, we're going to get her into the small engine, because she was going to take Scott's class. She still might, but that's kind of the same timing. But she's going to go do that.
Yeah.
Well, how awesome, right? Now, she would have graduated from there and walked out and wanted to go, but never had touched a hammer, screw,
and not know where to go in order to find that.
You know, and I'm not saying that's just because that's Jennifer Blado, our counselor there. It's the Caleb, it's the team that works with her there. All those kind of people that are great working with this young lady. But it's like we all got together and said, okay, what do you want to do and what do you need to do? And we can't, there's 2,000 kids in there. We try to do that for everybody, and we do the best we can. But the more we have these opportunities like this, where a kid can kind of seek that out a little bit, and if we don't have them to seek it out, we can kind of find that kid and get them into it. Then we're successful, whether they do it or not. We're at least successful from the fact that they tried it, and found out what they liked or didn't like.
And I think the more of us, the more small business owners, the more local community members that get involved with it, like you said to those young ladies about tying rebar, they'll never know unless they're exposed to it. So I believe it's our job as educators, as community, as adults, as mentors to these kids. It's our job to at least put it in front of them and let them make the decision on where they want to go with it.
So if people are out there too listening, like you can come in. I have people coming in during our lunchtime. I hang out with you, but like I've had people come in. We've had some truck companies, small businesses around here, restaurant, medical care place. I set up a table with you. I always tell you, bring in some stuff that whatever is reasonable, that kids can get their hands on and come over and ask questions, right? But what a better time than you get access to all 2,000 kids, because they all come through that lunchroom. It's for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I stand there with you. I direct kids over. I know, hey, that kid I know is interested in what you're doing. Hey, come here, go get your buddy. But they get there, they get to see you, exposure to that, and then they at least get to say, but then we bring you back for the career fair. We bring you back for a classroom visit, whatever. But I think those are invaluable. I did those last year. We'll continue to do that. I'd like to expand even more to those. But it's just amazing how if you have something there, like this table right here, if that was sitting in our lunchroom, you don't think there'd be a bunch of kids come and go, what's that thing?
What were the three or four most popular booths at the career fair last year? All four of the carpenter booths.
Hands-on.
Because we had hammers. We had one, I think CCC, they were actually building a wall and they were putting a window.
Yep.
Two of the Carpenters Union had another hammer thing.
Yep.
And the crowds were there and everybody's laughing and cheering and the conversation. And you know what? Like, so we have 2 female carpenters on staff. I'm very proud of that. And I think at the career fair, the last career fair that you guys did, to go on that, the first one that we did and the second one we did, they must have doubled, right?
Not quite double, but we only have capacity for so many, but we went from about 80 to about 120.
And the kids loved it. The kids were engaged in it. But I will say, like we had Emily, one of my female carpenters there, and she was great because we had more young ladies come and try to do the hammering, pounding a 16 penny nail and more, because the boys are like,
oh yeah,
and the girls are like, no, I want to do this, and they were great, and it was so it gives, like you said, it gives every kid an opportunity to do something that they're not exposed to on a daily basis, and who knows what that's going to do for a young kid.
And that's this young lady who wants to be the farrier. She mentioned that when she started talking. She goes, well, I actually had somebody tell me I would be good at welding. I said, oh, where did that happen? Well, it was good. At the career fair last year. She goes, you guys had those couple places at a virtual welder. So I went out and did it. She goes, I scored 90% on it. And so they looked at me and said, hey, you'd be a good welder. And I told her, I said, in the industry that I hear from our folks on the Construct Tomorrow crew, on the steelworker, they always say female welders are kind of at a premium because they're a little bit more detailed than us guys sometimes, because we get in the process of getting it done. They get in the process of being a little bit more perfection related and a little bit more precise. And so I've been told for years by multiple companies that if you have female welders, we would die for that. So she did it because of that career fair.
Yeah.
Whoever the person was running that booth on the virtual welder said, hey, you did a good job with that. You should consider that, And so she remembered that. And when we talked about doing this class, it didn't scare her away then, right? Just one little event experience made her say, okay, I'll go try it because this person said I might be okay at it, which is kind of cool. I mean, that's the purpose of those things, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I'll tell people here, if they're listening, like, I can't guarantee anything. You've heard me say this in front of other multiple speakers in there. All I can guarantee is exposure to kids, and all I can give the kids guarantee is exposure to it. Can't say if they're going to be your best worker in the world. Can't say if they might start with you and quit in 2 weeks. Can't say they might not start with you and be with you for 25 years. But I can always tell everybody, when I look at them, I say, well, what I can guarantee if you don't come or you don't interact with us, that they won't know who you are,
right,
unless I try. So I can guarantee that's the zero. If you come, you might have a 10% chance, 50%, whatever. But if I don't expose them to you and you don't interact with them, I can guarantee that there might be a 0% chance. So there are no guarantees in any of this stuff.
Well, there's no guarantees in life.
But if we don't give them
if
we don't give them the beginning, I can't at least have that opportunity for the ending. But.
So I think you just summed up the reason why all those years ago that I started to try to get involved in getting young kids back in the trades is because I have had, out of that 80, 90 employees that I've had, I've always tried to hire the top talent of the experience. And that's great, but every company can only afford to hire a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I see moving forward for our business is by getting these kids involved, and at least, like you said, there's no guarantees, but getting them involved and showing them what they do. And then it's our job as employers to make it cool, to make it a team, to make it a culture, to make it a family, and to promote what we do in a way that, like, I want people to say being a carpenter is as cool as being a doctor. I just had major surgery about 4.5 weeks ago. And my doctor, my surgeon, is one of the most amazing. Like, he just knocks me off my feet with my conversations with him. He goes, Jeremy, there's no difference from what I do and what you do. He goes, the only difference is in my house is a body.
Yep.
Right? Education is the same thing. Your house is a school, and you have to figure out how to make that school work, and give every kid an opportunity to figure out what they want to do with life. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said, because I always give the speech too. Like I said, I'm a non-traditionalist, so when I get in front of people, I say, "You would say that in front of school boards?" I said, "Yep," because I have everything, nothing to lose, but everything to lose, and the everything to lose is that you didn't give a kid exposure to things. And just think everybody's the same. So I used to tell them that. I'd say, we sit here and we talk a lot about, and I'm not a knock on this. Trust me, my daughter did this, and so whatever, PSEO type classes or honors, AP, whatever. And I'm not. If that's your cup of tea and you enjoy that, you should do that. Okay. But I used to sit there and tell our school board sometimes, why are these other things important? Because where do the PSEO classes take place typically? And they look at me kind of like, I said, probably on a college campus, right? How do kids get to the college campus every day to take that course? Well, they got to get in the car. Guess if their car doesn't start. Is it the genius fixing it or the dummy fixing it? Because a lot of years in education, we'd say the kid that's going into the auto class or the discipline class, it's just for all the kids who can't, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, if that kid, who when they open that hood, standing next to, no knock on again, standing next to the Shakespeare kid, which one's the genius right now?
Right. It's all perspective.
It's all perspective. Thank God we have those doctors that do those things, but the doctor goes home to a house that Jericho Construction may have built. And he couldn't do it, didn't want to do it, didn't know how to do it. And guess what? When you went to his place of work, you didn't want to be a doctor, you didn't want to, So we got to quit this narrative as that one's different or more important than the other. They're both extremely based on interest. whatever. But I always will use that speech. Could be I might get older people, but I'm like, I hate the term of this kid's not as talented as this kid because they're doing this track or that.
It's almost like you're giving up on them.
Yeah, saying that you're in a failure mode, you're in a lesser mode. But I also said, you don't, when the doctor's house gets super hot tomorrow when it's 90 degrees, who are they going to call? They're going to call another doctor. They're going to call the HVAC guy or gal and say fix it.
It's that kid that's not so smart that's standing in front of an engine that knows how to build it, that created a person like that created the internal combustion engine, who also can create an 800 horsepower motor, where a doctor can, I'm not stereotyping, but some doctors, all they want to do is turn a key in the car, and that's fine.
That's fine. Absolutely.
But some of those doctors like to drive race cars.
Sure.
So who do they go to? They go to the motorhead.
Yes.
That's the motorhead, right? It's
all
perspective.
It is.
And here's the thing: we all put our socks on the same way. We all put our underwear on the same way, whether you're a doctor or you're a garbage man.
Start off that way, and that's what I'll go back. Spring Lake Park schools for me, from what I've witnessed, they're open to all that. They really are. They let us do that. They do. They let us do that. They've got that end.
Yep.
And now they're letting us have. When I say this end, I don't mean this end as in, and I should put it this way. They've got this end and this end. It's not this end and that end anymore. It's the two ends.
And that's where we got to get to, is everybody to see that it's not this.
Yep.
That it's this.
And they're willing to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm there personally. That's why a lot of other people are there personally. And I think anybody in your community, you're a product of that. A lot of other people are. They do a good job.
I learn this might sound horrible, and I'll use the school administrators and stuff. Please take this the right way, but I found out all of the stereotypes that I had in my mind about teachers and the way the world is today are totally gone after being in schools every week and seeing the teachers fight the fight on what their beliefs are and what they want to teach kids, but also fighting the administrative side. And I'm not saying the administrative side's bad, but there's just processes and stuff that you have to do. And what I seen, like working with the administration this year and opening the eyes and opening their horizon to what kids need, you're 100% right. As an outsider that's just come into the school, is the administrative and all of the teachers. I can't say that there's a teacher in the school that didn't want to come out and see the house.
Oh yeah, they brought kids out. They came out.
That was a class field trip for them, right in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So I totally 100% agree with you that the administration, everybody in the district has just taken it, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's been fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. And we'll get all your information, your contact information, and anybody can reach out to you. And hopefully you get some more businesses that contact you and want to be involved.
Yeah, any way that you want, we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for your time. Remember, work hard, have fun, and be a leader.